Welcome to Sage Audio. Today, let's look at how to mix for clarity. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Saturate or excite high frequencies. Having a good ratio of high to low frequencies is key to creating clarity. Saturation of the highs is a great way to increase the level of high frequencies. Now, when we saturate or excite high frequencies, we introduce harmonic distortion, which fills the high end of the frequency spectrum. So let's use Tape by Baby Audio and increase the presence slider. Now, this is going to focus harmonic distortion to the highs, resulting in greater clarity. Let's take a listen. Augment 3 to 5 kHz using EQ. Sometimes clarifying your mix is as simple as amplifying 3 to 5 kHz with an EQ, since this is the region that our ears are incredibly sensitive to. Now simply create a band centered on 4 kHz and amplify a few dB on an individual signal or 1 to 2 dB on a bus. Let's take a listen to this on the mix bus and use more aggressive settings to get a better understanding of how this affects clarity. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Vintage tape machine clarity. Tape machines dealt with the issue of tape hiss. Now to remedy this, many tape machines used encoders and decoders. The encoder amplified the high frequencies to cover the hiss, and the decoder attenuated the highs to balance out the spectrum. But we can enable an encoder without using the decoder. Now this greatly brightens up the sound of a signal. It works particularly well at clarifying vocals and acoustic instruments. Let's take a listen to it. Reduce overlap on lows. In Chapter 1, I stated that clarity has a lot to do with the ratio between high and low frequencies, meaning if our lows are too aggressive, it'll have an adverse effect on mixed clarity. Now, one of the biggest issues in the lows is when the kick and the bass aggressively overlap. To remedy this, I like to attenuate the kick's fundamental on the bass. So first I'll see what that is by observing the response of the kick, then I'll create a bell filter on the bass and dip that frequency. Let's take a listen and see if we notice an improvement between the two. Frequency-specific bass ducking. Many engineers like to use bass ducking to balance the kick and the bass, but the full frequency spectrum of the bass is going to be attenuated, even the parts that were helping separate it from the kick. Now, a better solution, in my opinion, is to use a multi-band compressor instead of a stereo one. So, with a multi-band compressor inserted on the bass, I'll sidechain the kick and isolate the attenuation to the lows. Now when the kick hits, the bass's lows are going to be attenuated. Again, we can center this band on the kick's fundamental frequency like we did in the last chapter. Let's take a listen to it. Where to set high-pass filters. Now, we all know that high-pass filters are a good way to clarify a signal. However, the center frequency of the band is rarely discussed. For example, on a lead vocal, we rarely, if ever, want to set the high-pass filter higher than the vocal's fundamental frequency. Another example would be if the synths or guitars are overpowering the lead vocal, we could set the high pass on them to right above the vocal's fundamental to give the vocals some more room. Let's take a listen to a mix with high-pass filters set more thoughtfully. Today's video is brought to you by Musia, a chord and melody generator that makes creating music and learning new chords incredibly easy. The auto chord feature lets you quickly create chords within a specific key, then transpose them if you need to. The chords it generates always have a very musical progression, and the plugin even lets you switch the genre. Also, you can drag and drop the MIDI that Musica creates into your DAW, meaning you aren't limited to any particular sound. Right now, they're having a 30-day free trial, so check that out using the link in the description. Modulated high-frequency saturation. Like Chapter 1, saturation can be used on high frequencies to add clarity, but if we incorporate modulation, we can accent transients, augmenting the effect even more. With Saturn II, one of the few if not only plugins that offers this function, I'll first create an envelope follower. I'll set it to transient mode, attach it to the drive dial, and then adjust the slider to determine how greatly the incoming signal will trigger distortion. For an even more aggressive effect, let's isolate the distortion to the highs and trigger the saturation on those frequencies, making the transient pop out and adding a lot more clarity. Let's take a listen. If you're enjoying the channel, use the search box to watch more of our videos. High frequency, transient expanders. In addition to saturating highs, we can expand transients on the high frequencies, increasing both the dynamic range and the mix's clarity. I'll use a frequency-specific transient expander for this and isolate the expansion to only the high frequencies. Now, I find that this works well on drums, guitars, and synths. That said, I would probably avoid this on vocals due to how it can make the sibilants more aggressive. Let's take a listen. Ultimate Mix Bus Air Trick. Air and clarity aren't the same thing since air is associated with higher frequencies, but augmenting the air of a mix really complements the frequencies associated with clarity. For this trick, I'll create a bus with my full mix and with a high Q shelf, drastically amplify above 12 kHz. Additionally, I'll attenuate all frequencies lower than 12 kHz and set the EQ to linear phase to avoid phase cancellation between the send and the original signal. Then I'll use a low latency upward compressor to bring forward all of the quietest details of these frequencies before using the send's channel fader to blend this effect in with the original signal. Let's take a listen. Dynamic mid-frequency equalization. I avoided this topic until near the end of the video since not everyone is going to have an intelligent EQ. But if you do, I'd recommend isolating its processing to the mids of a signal and then introducing the effect. This works even better if you're sidechaining a competing signal. For example, I could place this on my vocal bus and sidechain the instrument bus, then use subtle settings. Let's take a listen to this effect being used on the full mix bus and notice how isolating it to the mids adds a lot of clarity. Soothe 2 with external sidechain. Similar to last chapter, we can use a unique plugin, Soothe 2, to attenuate overlapping frequencies by inserting the processor on a signal and then sidechaining a competing signal. Again, a good example of this would be to use it on vocals, then sidechain an instrument bus. Let's try it on the lows though by placing it on the bass and sidechaining the kick to add clarity, similar to chapters 4 and 5. If you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.